your girl Asante, helping you move consciously and creatively through life. So let's talk about project planning in Notion, my favorite application. I use Notion to manage basically my entire life, but I think it particularly shines when it comes to planning out tasks and projects. I use databases as the foundation of my system, so some familiarity with those will help, but either way, I'll be walking you through step by step how I map out my tasks and projects in Notion. So let's jump into Notion. Okay. I do everything from my today action dashboard. This is where I live in Notion. It's cozy, it's comfortable, it's familiar. I feel safe. I'm at home in my Notion today action dashboard. I go through this whole dashboard itself in detail in my ultimate to-do list video, so I will link to that if you're curious about this dashboard. But everything that I'm doing now with project planning, you can do if you picked up my ultimate to-do list template, which I'll also link below. So if I'm, thinking about my tasks and I want to create a new project, I have a view for my active projects here. And so this projects database is connected to this task database. So what I'll be going through is how I map out things within a project that then allow the tasks to show up within this today action dashboard and as I'm planning out my tasks throughout the future. So say my project that I think of is creating a new Notion template. So let's say this is when I was creating my yearly planning template, which I released at the beginning of the year. I'll just click into this and say create yearly planning template. So I'll just enter the title there. It'll mark it as active since this filter is set to active and not ongoing. Some projects are ongoing, they don't have an end date. So everything with an end date and that's active will show up here. I can mark this time frame as something that I want to do now, and this is the action type. So this is something I have to produce. These action types help me to categorize the tasks that I want to do at certain times. Sometimes I'll be in more of an admin mood. Sometimes I'll want to be more studious. I'll have more time to read and focus. So these action types help with that. This roll up shows me how many remaining tasks I have, and I have 0. What's nice is that any view that I surface with this remaining task, it'll let me know, hey, you need to go in and plan this project and actually map out the tasks, because right now it's not going to show up on your to-do list. There's nothing within this. If there's a due date, I can mark it, and then the objectives that I've yet to complete, I can link here. So I will attach this to an objective, which is to launch a suite of Notion templates. That was one of my big objectives for this year. Basically done with that. I have a couple little things to tweak and a couple other videos to do. But if you've mapped out your objectives and how those objectives connect to goals, I went over that in my yearly planning video. That high level planning can map to these specific projects, so you can think about the actual actions you'll need to take to get the objectives complete. So I can fill in, as many or as little of these properties as I want, but either way I'll come in and I'll say this is a new business project with these templates. They populate the zone as business. My zones are business and personal. I like to have a social zone as well. And then the template has brought in these task databases. So this is where I'll start to think about what really needs to go into this project. Made it full screen there. So I will just start to type out my tasks that are going to be a part of this. So let's say I have to copy over my data structures. If you've made a list elsewhere, you can just copy and paste in the bulleted list, drag it into the database, and they each become database items. All of these are going to be connected to this project automatically because of these filters here. And each of these tasks will have the zone automatically populated as business. And so then I can think about when I'm actually going to get these things done. I have a property in the task database that I find helps at this point called the project sequence. This is a numerical field, and if I sort then by project sequence, so project sequence ascending, it'll order things by what I number them. They're in roughly the right order when I entered them, but if you wanted to change the order, that's actually last. You can play with these. So then once I have the tasks in the rough order I need to complete them, I give them a time frame, so maybe I want to make sure that I do all of these this week. So I added the property, make it this week. The time frames are rough estimates. So today and tomorrow are mainly applied in the filtered views. Most things that I want to do pretty soon are this week. Next is after that, soon is after that. What this mainly does is allows me to have a container that catches any tasks that I wind up deleting the due date from. Because maybe I plan to do it on Tuesday, but there's actually no way I can get it done on Tuesday, and Wednesday and Thursday are also looking crowded, so I'm just going to delete it from the day, and it actually becomes a non-urgent task that I want to get done sometime this week. And so then I can go to my this week view, which is within my today action dashboard, and populate things onto due dates as I actually have the availability. The due date here that I'm usually referring to is the date I want to do the task, execute the task. Most of my tasks don't have a formal due date that they have to be completed by, because a lot of this is on my own initiative. But for now, let's say I can actually get to all of these. So one today, one tomorrow, and so on. And then I enter the activity type for the task. Another thing that's nice about adding the activity type, which is less important than the due date and the estimated time, which I'll get to, but these are in a particular order. So without any other filtering functions, they'll surface in this order because my energy runs a certain way each day. In the morning, I tend to be very focused, but not very creative and not very high energy. So it's a great time for me to do admin and send emails. Emails are usually more pressing, so I would do those first. Admin would be next. After that, I tend to do my wellness routines like exercising or tidying up around the house. And then after that, in the after lunch area, I tend to do my producing, my actual making of videos, writing scripts. I'm more creative in the afternoon. I have more energy in the afternoon, so I'll usually produce at that time. And then in the evening, as I'm sort of cooling down, that's when I'll maybe read a book, which would fall under studying, or I'll go out with friends or have a hangout or call, my family. That stuff usually happens in the evening. Errands and meetings fall outside of normal activities, and then waiting is for the waiting for list, which also surfaces on my today action dashboard. So since these are all about me making the template, they're actually all production tasks, so I will mark them all as produce, copy, and paste. Then we get to the estimated time, and I usually just keep these bunched up, but for the sake of demonstration, I will unfurl it. This is when I can see about what's really realistic to accomplish in any given day. And I might even do the estimated time first if this isn't really an urgent due date, so that I can just take a quick second or two and think about, wait, how long is this actually going to take before I put it on a specific day? So when you estimate a time, this actually wound up taking me an hour. This formula will populate that number in hours. But it'll show me an estimate of how long this project is probably going to take. So that's how I plan the project. If I start to have more project tasks, I can always come back in and add a second thing, add a third thing, and it's just gonna expand and flow right through all of the changes in the project. If I need to go back and adjust days, I can do that. So this is super flexible. On the side is a space where if I have this page open, I can track my time. I have an app called Alfred, which is a text expander, so that allows me to quickly input data values. So I'm filming late at night tonight. I just put the start time. When I finish, I put the end, and I can say how many actual hours it had. I'm not usually in this view. If you wanted to add it to this view, you can. Or you can go back to the action dashboard and see now I have populated this and it shows up here. So this is where I usually check things off from, and I will say that I completed it today. It did actually take me an hour. I felt, happy about it. I love Notion build outs. I have another Alfred shortcut that puts the day in. This connects to my daily journal. And then boom, it's complete, it's done. Super fast to check it off. Putting the estimated time and the actual time frame can help me to get more realistic about my estimates of how long things will take so I can map out my time and my projects more and more effectively. And then another reason why I like having the time estimate is because I can then map out my week and my tasks for the next couple of days to make sure my workload is manageable. And I do this also on my Today Action dashboard. I have this drop down here, and this will say, okay, for everything that you've planned on this due date, how many hours do you estimate this will take? For myself, I know there are a certain amount of hours of intentional action that I can usually get to per day. Usually that's between 7 to 8, maybe 9 hours. So I can scroll through the week and see that I can indeed do the template page cleanup because I inputted the 2 hours and it says it's only 7 1/3 hours planned for that day. Before I made this estimated hours feature, I was always overbooking myself and I'd be too ambitious because I hadn't actually thought out, okay, what are each of the steps and how long will they take? So this has saved me from that. Because I do things by day of the week, I say to myself, oh, I can do this on Monday rather than I can do this on January 31st. I have these as separate databases, and then within each view, I do find myself just updating the next time that I plan. Okay, actually the next Monday is now this day. And so I update those as I go along. For more advanced Notion users, Notion does have a grouping feature that you can replicate this layout similarly without needing to change the dates, but you can't see this like Monday's tasks, Tuesday's tasks. You wouldn't be able to see that. You would just see things by the due date. So I prefer this method. And in my own Today Action dashboard, outside of this demo version with the clean data that I have, in my own space, I have another iteration of one of these daily databases where I just check any day and say, okay, how much have I planned for that day? Can I add something else to this day? And if you wanted, you could add that to your projects template as well, so that you can check within the project planning space what days have more workload than others. So this time estimating feature has been a game changer, revolutionized the game, and I'm much more realistic about what I can handle. And during my weekly reviews, which I'll probably make another video about, I can go back and look at the tasks that I accomplished and really see how many hours of intentional action did I get done that week. Because there's always gonna be things that come up and people will call you, or you have to feed yourself, you have to go to the bathroom, but how many hours of intentional action can I get done each week? And I also look quickly at what percentage of that was client work versus my own work versus personal. So just taking a few seconds to input a couple of fields gives me a lot of data so that I can really know what I'm doing, what I'm working on, and where I can improve. And I will also stress that you only need to fill out a few of these properties, especially with my layouts and workflows. I tend to be pretty detailed and I love data and sorting through it and knowing things and gleaning insights. So I wind up having a lot of fields that help me with formulas or roll-ups. Roll-ups connect to other databases that you've linked and can tell you information from that other database. So I wind up having a lot of properties. But going into this task, for example, there are only a few here that you need to really fill out. I mark things that are necessary by these blue diamonds. So I love using emojis in the property names so that I can easily skim through the properties since there's so many. And a lot of these, urgency you may or may not use, importance you may or may not use. Those can then help you to filter tasks by urgency or importance if you want. I have some roll-ups that tell me information about the project, if the project has a due date or date I was planning to do it, things about the status of the project that it's a part of, and some information about when I created the task and when it was last updated. Those can help when I'm ordering tasks by date created. But I hide those most of the time. So with these few couple of properties, you can get a lot done. And going back to the project, I also use this page as sort of a dashboard for the project. So if there are any project-specific assets or notes or databases that I want to create to track items within the project, I use this project page as that area. And Notion has unlimited levels of hierarchy, so you can have a database within this page and then have a page in that database and etc. and so forth. Probably don't want to get too deep with it, don't want to entangle yourself too much, but you do have a lot of flexibility if you need to build out more of a project dashboard. And then going through the fields of this project database, if there's an actual due date, I can have that here and therefore be able to filter by urgency. the date planned. If there's a client, I can mark what client it's for here and then show projects only for a particular client. And if I expand, this is what I use to check off a project. That's basically the only time when I unfurl these properties. And I use this check mark emoji to help me remember which ones to check off. But I'll say the date. It was completed today. And then I also have my weeks for my weekly review, months for my monthly review. So by linking to the week and the month that I completed this project in, I can then reflect at the end and see a built up done list that makes me feel very good about myself and all of that I've accomplished. And I can see, okay, what's a reasonable rate for the amount of projects that I can take on every week or every month. Once I complete a project, I switch the objective from this incomplete to the complete. Then we have a bunch of relationships to other databases and some roll-ups that I find to be helpful as I'm trying to sift through information. Sometimes I like to plan out what I'm gonna do in a month, so I connect the projects to the month planned area. And the task time frame allows me to filter and check if there are any tasks assigned to this week. After a project is complete, the last thing is to check the status and change it to complete. And if I go back to my today action dashboard and want to check up on my active projects, it's now gone because it's complete. That's how I'll plan a one-off project. If I have spur of the moment tasks, I just add them in this today action dashboard since I'm living here. I can add any relevant properties and then scroll to connect it to a project. But there's some projects that I find myself doing over and over and over again, like making videos. So as opposed to reinventing the wheel, I have template projects that have a list of tasks already built in. And you can do this a couple of ways, and I'll jump into my own workspace to show you the templates that I've set up for myself. So one thing that I realized I would need to do over again was create a Notion template. So I have new Notion template creation. So clicking on that, it adds my image there for me, my little icon. And so I could say create relationships, Notion template. And then here I have a little unfurl drop down, add tasks from here. And similarly as I did before, boom. And I can say, this is probably an hour. And I can maybe look at these and say, okay, do these look accurate for this current project? The other way is to have your properties even already filled in. This is what I do for my YouTube videos. So I have a template for a video creation project. And so that icon populates. This is my goal, so I automatically had it linking to that objective. And then this is the body. I have another database that's just for ideas for content creation, so I make sure to link the project to the idea it's related to. So then that piece of content would show up here. But importantly for this conversation are these tasks. So this is everything that it takes for me to make a video. Now I can say, am I gonna edit this video or am I gonna send it to my video editor? So this one's going to my video editor, so I will delete the things that are just relevant to me. And I can say, okay, is there gonna be a Patreon video as a bonus? Maybe not, so I can delete that. And then for the rest that is relevant, I can highlight. Boom. And so then these time estimates are filled out, as well as what type of activity it is. And so how I made those pre-made blocks were that I inputted things into the tasks database, disconnected any relations, and then dragged them out of the tasks database. I have this for multiple kinds of content that I do. So for Instagram, for example, I have my task list here. This is within my social content structure. And if I wanted to create a new one, I would just drag these into this inputting view. But I have a view for editing the template. And this just shows every task that I've created in chronological order. Whereas this one would link things automatically to the post itself. So I just want to edit the template. Click, drag these into here. And from here, I can say, okay, it looks like I need to give these an activity type. So let's enter that, and then when I drag these out, all of the properties will remain the next time that I take it from a template and drag it into one of the actual structures. And think about how this fits into my larger system. A lot of projects, but not all projects, are connected to objectives. So I do want to publish a video every week this year. I'm really putting this out there. I'd better actually do this the way I've been like talking about this goal. I don't usually talk about my goals all public like this, but I'm really trying to do this. So that's my objective. And this objective fits into my goal of executing my content sprint this year. And I can periodically come back and update this objective. I haven't updated it recently, but unfurling this, I've actually put up 4 videos so far. So I'm 8% of the way there. I'll eventually check the objective off here. And here you can see all of the projects that are related to that outcome and map them out. I don't want to spoil my upcoming videos, so I will blur this section out, but you get the idea. And then within the goals page, there's a similar area where I can see all of the objectives that are helping me to reach my goals and all of the habits that are supporting me reaching my goals. So you can see there are a lot of little, bells and whistles and properties and drop downs that you can toggle with and see what works for you. The nice thing is it's really flexible and it's something that I build up over time. So I don't necessarily take an objective and flesh out every single project that I need. I do things as they come up. So if you're just starting out in Notion, you don't have to be intimidated by all of the fields, because know that a lot of them are optional. A lot of them are deletable if you pick up someone else's template. There's a lot of maneuvering things and getting them to fit the way that you work and the way that you think. So that's how I plan my projects in Notion. Again, I will link to templates in the description if you're interested in swiping my exact system. Hope this inspired your Notion build out. I love learning about people's systems and tweaking things, so happy Notioning. And big shout out to my Patreon patrons who are supporting me and making this channel more sustainable. As always, remember to live spiritedly and think creatively, and I will see you next time.